Hi everyone, I'm Ali Payani and this is the Leading Mindset and where we discuss the entrepreneurial journeys, challenges, opportunities. So this is our first episode after the pandemic or maybe during the pandemic still. And today we have one of my most favorite people and CEOs, Chris Dyer, who's the CEO of PeopleG2, expert in company culture and remote work. Hi Chris, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Sure. Tell me, start with PeopleG2. How did it all started?
Well, back in the day, I'm sure you may remember 9/11 happened and I was working for somebody else. And I didn't like working for someone else. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have my own business, but I fell into that thing I think a lot of people fall into is where you have a safe job and you can get a car and you can have a mortgage. And, it's like, do you want to give up that safety? I was young and I thought, I'll do this a little longer and then that a little longer. And I just kept working for other people and I wasn't happy. But I was safe, right? I didn't have to worry about, could I pay my bills and things like that. And then 9/11 happened and I just watched those, that what happened. And it immediately, it's like someone lifted a magic spell off of me. And I went, oh, this is not what I want to do with my life. Life is short. So I decided, I'm going to quit this job. So that was September 11th. I quit a couple of days after. November 1st, I had started my company and we have been going ever since.
What would you think would be the main challenge when you just started, just growing the business? Or what was those main challenges?
Well, I was lucky that I had been working for someone else who in the same business that I was starting. So I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's if they're starting a new business and they're going to go into something they don't know how to do yet, that can be problematic. So you have to really make sure that you have either studied or apprenticed or worked for someone else, that you have some basis, right? I met people that are like, I think it'd be fun to run a restaurant. I'm going to go start a restaurant, but they've never worked in a restaurant. You can't do that. Right? In most cases, you're going to fail. So you have to have a base of knowledge. You can't just have a desire. You can't just have a dream. You have to figure out either how can I learn it by myself? How can I learn it from someone else? But have that basis in knowledge. And then the second part is, how do you survive and grow and get it, something done? I think you and I talked about this a little bit, like you're early on in your business, right? Like just being able to put enough money in the bank account so that the bank account could stay open, right? You were just trying to figure it out early on. And that for a lot of people, it's that, how do I just survive while I'm trying to figure it out? And I think you have to have a side hustle. Do you have a regular job and you just start your business on the side? Do you, maybe your spouse or your parents or just someone willing to support you, right? While you figure it out, you have to, you can't just hope that you're going to start a business on November 1st and then by the end of the month you're going to have business. It just, right, you have to have enough runway to be able to be successful. And I think not understanding the business is the biggest problem for entrepreneurs. The second biggest problem is having enough runway to give themselves time to figure it out to be successful.
Right. Well, what do you think would be the best or most useful skills, like entrepreneurs should have or maybe develop during those days? For me was discipline or can handle the pressure or just thinking faster. So that might be for me. But what do you think you usually like you maybe advise others, so here are maybe the top 5 or most important skills you have to have or maybe become stronger in those?
It does depend on what the person's doing. So you can be incredibly gifted and good at developing something new. Like you could be an inventor, right? And you could be an incredible inventor and come up with some brand new thing. And it doesn't really matter if you're that good at sales, or if you're that good at marketing or that, right? But if you can make something no one else can make, you have a special quality. I think for most people though, it's about being really, really determined and being able to work harder than anybody else. I have noticed that most of the CEOs and entrepreneurs that I admire, they just work their butts off, right?
Mhm.
And the second part to that is that they were willing to change, or willing to pivot, or willing to realize I'm on one path, and oh, what is that? That's interesting. A client will pay for that. Well, let me start doing more of that. And they may change their company's direction a few times to be able to really figure it out.
Exactly.
I think there's a combination between being stubborn,
Mhm.
like to really work hard and be stubborn that I'm gonna do this, but being pliable enough to say what I thought I was going to do isn't really what is going to end up being the business. Right? I'm
Mhm.
okay to change my mind along the way and say, yeah, maybe not. This is better. I make more money doing this instead. So, hope that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. What do you think? Like, have your priorities changed? You know, like usually, like every year or every few months, maybe our priorities change. Or maybe some of the sacrifices we do. So, what was that like for you?
For the first 8 years of the business, it was always the
Mhm.
same. It was the same reinvention of the goal, which was if we can just get to this amount, man, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And then as soon as you got to that amount, it was like, well, that's not enough. If we get to this amount, then everything's going to be okay. And we did that for like 7, 8 years.
Mhm.
And then it was, well, we have to reinvent the company. 2005 or so, we went, you know what? We really have to make a new investment in technology. The world has changed. We can't keep operating the way we were. And then the recession hit in 2008, 2009. And we said, well, we're going to have to change the way we operate the company. And that's when we went fully remote. That was
Mhm.
when I decided my priorities were no longer our profit and loss. My priorities were no longer our sales.
Mhm.
My priority became my people. And so my goals have always been centered around my people and how I can help them be more successful. How do I create an organization that operates well, that is successful, and let my people be the
Mhm.
ones who worry about our sales goals and our profit and loss and our customer service and all that. Like as you so as an entrepreneur, it's just you or you and one other person, you have to do everything. And at some point, you have to take that hat off that I'm in customer service, I'm in tech support, I'm
Mhm.
in, and give it to someone else. And I don't mean kind of give it to them, right? You can only one person can wear a hat at a time. You never see two people wearing in real life the same hat, right? You have to give that hat all the way to the other person and let go. Check in. You got to make sure they're doing the right thing, but like you have to give them that full authority. And I felt like I didn't do that for a long time. I was
Mhm.
sort of always trying to touch everyone's hats figuratively, right? I was trying to be too involved, and
Mhm.
that caused them to feel like they couldn't grow, they couldn't make good decisions, they weren't empowered. So when I focused on that, then that changed everything for us, right?
Right.
Um, and then you start thinking about, well, how many more people do we need next year, right? But all my thinking is about my people now.
Right. So you're a company culture expert and remote work. So my follow-up question based on your answer basically is that mostly now everyone is kind of like struggling in maybe monitoring the employees. So some people want it to be really strict or have like some tools or softwares in place to really monitor how much time everyone is spending in the company on a specific task. So what do you think companies or entrepreneurs or even managers, HR should do to actually accomplish that? So because you're saying like you give the full responsibility to the team members. So what do you think a company should do, especially like in the remote work?
So I am adamantly against tracking people and doing anything that would be like spying on them or whatever. I feel like that is so misguided that we're
Mm-hmm.
treating people like children. So instead, we need to get very, very clear about metrics and outcomes and measurements. So it does depend on the job, right? So if I have someone who is a customer service agent and they're getting calls and tickets coming in, yeah, I can look at their tickets. I can say how many tickets are they able to handle per hour?
Mm-hmm.
How often do their tickets get good results versus bad? Those are great ways to help keep an eye on someone and be able to understand how they're doing. That's different than, am I somehow tracking whether or not they're logged onto their computer the whole time, or whether or not they're like, I don't want to get into the big brother stuff. That always
Mm-hmm.
sends a bad message to your employees. Now, you could have a manager, though, that doesn't have that kind of interaction. You can't look at how many tickets are, right? They're in meetings or doing different things. Then you need to change the goals to be bigger strategic things. Like for my sales manager, we set a goal on what the new business should be every quarter or every year. And are we hitting that? Are we surpassing that? Are we below that? And if something happens and we have conversations, and if we can make a change, great. And if we can't, then maybe not the right person for the job. But tracking the amount of hours on the computer and how many they click, and are they really sitting on that seat, I find you think that would be good, but it turns out to be really, really bad. Sometimes I want my people to get up and go away from their computer and go take a walk and let their brain think about things, right? Give them space and time to come up with better ideas. If you force people to just sit somewhere and only be doing that one thing, it's task oriented and it's not strategic. And I need my people to think strategically sometimes. And so I want them to have space. I want them to get up and walk around. I don't want them always like sitting in one place at one time. So it really have to be trusting of our people. I've only had one time since 2009 that I feel like somebody maybe wasn't being trustworthy, right? That means hundreds of employees and thousands of independent contractors all did a great job. I never did. One person. And we figured it out pretty quickly because they weren't doing what we thought they should be doing, and we got rid of them. I trusted everyone else. And I think that's a better way to go about it.
Well, how did you create that culture in your company? Well, that's one question. And the follow-up is like how the companies should change in their culture.
It takes time.
When you're saying that you have only one problem since 2009, so that means you have the culture. And since you're expert, so how did you create your own culture, and what should other companies look for, to say like, hey, here I have a problem in my culture. So what are there maybe signs, that you have to make some changes? So
the kind of two simple sayings that I always like to repeat for people that will help them is, first one is, what you focus on grows. So if I focus on good outcomes and I focus on what my best employees are doing, and I'm focusing on, key measurements and things that are good, people will do more of that, right? If I focus on the negative and I focus on, well, geez, was Sally not at her desk when I called at 3:00? And I suddenly think Sally's not working. If I focus on that as a negative, there's gonna be more of that to find. And then the second saying is, design what you want or deal with what you get. So you need to really think about, how can I design a company, right? How do I design things to ensure that we have the right setting? And it comes down to very simple things, a lot of very simple tactical things we can do to really help our organizations. I'll give you a couple easy examples. Now, every organization is different. So what works for me might be different for you, but the point is that you took the time to design something. I found that communication was a struggle for us. And so what I decided, we went back and experimented with, everything goes in Slack. Everything internal must be in Slack. There is no more email between people in my company. Email is only for clients and vendors and outside, maybe other people in the company on that email. But if it's an email between 1 or 2 or 3 people, whatever, inside the company, it happens in Slack. Now, why is that? It's so much easier to find conversations, to look things up, to find files, to remember what was said. It's all there, right? If an employee leaves, we tend to delete their email, but it's still in Slack. All that information is still there, even if an employee left. Number 3, people can stop working and not feel like they have to respond. You can put your Slack on do not disturb. So when you're done with work at 5, you'll come in at 8 tomorrow morning. But when you get in at 8, you know how many messages there are in each of the different rooms, and you can get caught up when it makes sense for you. Whereas email, I feel like everyone's got their phone here, and then they're responding to emails at 9 o'clock at night when they're not, and they shouldn't be. So it helped create some good barriers. For us, that was a really good way to improve communication and also improve transparency, because even though we pushed everyone to Slack, then we also said you should be contributing inside of rooms that are very specific to the topic. So let's say you have a client onboarding, and we call that XYZ company. Everyone who's helping onboard that client's in that room. So if something happens, if something needs to be talked about, it's in the room. So I can get caught up and I know what's happening. That's transparency. But if just you and I had the conversation about that client and we didn't tell anybody else on the team because we're busy, because we're lazy, because we just got distracted, now they feel like they don't know what's going on, right? And they feel disconnected. So Slack helped us create more transparency. So that's the biggest things. How can you be more transparent with your team and with your company? Sharing more, talking about more, right? Getting rid of secrets and one-on-one conversations and politics. And all. Create an environment where people can learn more, find out more, and know what's going on, because that's the right thing to do, right? When that happens, there's a direct correlation between their involvement and their energy and their belief in the company, right? If they know what's going on, then they know what's going on and they don't have to guess. But if they don't know what's going on, then they get fearful. They have anxiety because, like, well, is no one telling me anything because I'm doing a bad job? Or is the business, struggling? Are we going to go out of business? People come up with these crazy ideas to explain what they don't know. So we want to tell people more, give them more information to help them feel good about what's happening.
Right. So don't you think that in order to maybe now become successful in remote work, let's say if a company has Slack in place, or they already use some of those remote work tools, but don't you think it's directly linked and related to their company culture also to become successful in remote work? And what should they do now, so to make sure that they have a right, maybe, like practices in place?
Well, I mean, there's lots that they can do. And the biggest thing is you need to make sure that you are not trying to recreate what you had in the office directly, right? Because working in an office is different than working 100% remote. So it's going to take a different skill set, right? It takes the things you need to do to be good at riding a bike are different than the things you need to be good at to ski down a mountain, let's say, right? You need to be in good shape for both, but I mean, they take different skill sets and different strategies and different muscle groups and all that. It's the same thing. Yes, we need good employees. Yes, we need good communication. Yeah, all these things. There's some similarities, but how we operate remotely is different. One of the biggest things is to eliminate one-on-one meetings. We got to get people in groups of 5 to 7. Anyone involved in that topic about that meeting who needs to know, will need to know, might be impacted, could just learn from being there, should be on that call. And as opposed to, in a traditional office, you might just bump into someone in the hallway and have a quick conversation and then bump into someone else and let them know what you talked about. That doesn't happen in remote work. We have to be more intentional. Slack helps with that, right? Create some of that bumping into each other by doing it inside of a room. But we have to be more intentional about our meetings. The second part of the meetings is that we have to shorten our meetings. People tend to book a meeting for 30 minutes and magically that meeting takes 30 minutes. So they book an hour and it magically takes an hour. We want to try to set meetings for smaller amounts of time and set the goal to be done early. If I set a 15-minute meeting, can we get it done in 8 minutes? Can we get it done in 7 minutes? Can we be quick and efficient here? Yeah, this is cool. What happened? if you know it's a small meeting about a small thing, we don't need to talk about our weekends and what our kids did, or no, just talk about the small thing and get up. We can do it on another call, right, where we catch up with a team or things. So to kind of redesign, and that's a lot about what is in my book about how to redesign those practices, those procedures, those moments in a new way for remote work.
Great. One of my favorite questions is to ask every entrepreneur, how do you define success? So that would be maybe in business, maybe in personal life, but in general, what Chris Dyer thinks, or how Chris Dyer defines success?
Yeah, I think I would break that into. It is a hard question because I'm trying to, in which lens do I operate that or answer that? So what is success for me, right? Success for me personally is, are we meeting our goals, which is ultimately like, to make a lot of money? Are we being successful in making the money and being profitable, doing the things that I think we should be doing? That's me personally. When I leave work and I'm at home and I think, am I successful as a person? It should translate, the work I'm doing should translate into results, and results tends to be money or something like that. Now, if I look at it from the lens as the CEO, as the leader of the organization, I would define success in that, how well are my people doing? Because the better my people do, the better the company does, and the better the company does, the better I do, right? So I look at it really, success is how many successful employees do I have around me that are blowing my expectations out of the water, that are always surprising me with their incredible, intuition and inventiveness and innovation. Like when they're doing that kind of stuff, and they're knocking on my door saying, hey, have we thought about doing this cool thing? Or, hey, did you know that this law passed and we might need to make a change? When they're coming to me, right, and I'm trying to keep up with them, I'm happy, right? Nothing's worse than feeling like you're pulling everyone along and you're the one out in front, and you're trying to just get people to even try to think about coming along. They're pulling me, right? They're going, come on, we got to hurry up. You got to be here. And that's what I want. That's success as a CEO. And then I think the third lens is there some way for me to give back, right? That's the third lens, is what am I doing at my age and in my position? Am I able to help other entrepreneurs and other people who are starting businesses? Am I able to share my lessons? And that's why I wrote the books. I mean, it's like, how can I share what I know so someone else can benefit from it and they don't have to go through some of the things I went through, right? Can I help other people be successful faster than I was, because they can skip all the mistakes I made and go right to the correct answer the first time.
Great. So you're a best-selling author as well, and your book was the #1 release in HR in Amazon. So tell us more about the 2 books you have, Company Culture and Remote Work, and how people can get those books.
Yeah. So the first book is The Power of Company Culture. I wrote it back in 2018. And that was really when we decided to change the company, I really became I just couldn't read enough books about culture and studying other organizations and, interviewing people on my podcast, really fantastic leaders. And I just kept hearing the same things over and over again. The people who are successful were doing certain things correctly all the time. And so that's what the book is about. What are these things you need to do? It's called the 7 pillars of success. What are these 7 things that you need to focus on as a business? And if you do, all the research says you're going to do great, right? Unless you're selling, something terrible or illegal, you're going to do pretty good. The second book is Remote Work, and I started writing that with my co-author, Kim Shepard, before the pandemic, because we both have fully remote organizations. We then had to change the book. like I talked about before, you find these moments of a little bit of a pivot is needed.
Mhm.
COVID happened and we went, well, we're going to have to talk about this too, because this has changed the whole trajectory for companies. So you can find them both on Amazon, wherever you buy your books online. If you don't have Amazon in your country, whatever you use, it's usually there. You can even contact me through my website, chrisdyer.com, or even my publisher in the UK can get a book anywhere in the world, koganpage.com.
And I think that people can get the signed version also on your website.
They can. If they would like a signed version, I'll write whatever they want on there within reason. And yeah, they can get a signed version from me.
Good. What are you working on now? Are you in like PeopleG2 and more like involved in the company culture and remote work consultation? So what are you working on now?
Yeah, it was really interesting during the pandemic. I did over 100 trainings for companies, big and small. I mean, some of the big ones like Citibank, Johnson and Johnson, the National Health Service in the UK, IKEA, to help them implement really good strategies for remote work. And then as they got good and that did all those trainings, and we created a online leadership remote course that people can take. But that has lately transitioned into have a lot of companies that are finding it a little overwhelming to deal with some of the people stuff, or finding a little overwhelming to deal with the remote work stuff. They're very good at their business, but this added layer of the extra stuff they need to deal with that they either can't, won't, or don't have the time, or aren't very good at it. And so they've been bringing me in to come and help them a few hours a month deal with some of that stuff at a high level. So asking me to come in and be a fractional executive for them, to help them and help their people. Again, I've made all the mistakes. I know which thing works really well now. And I can tell them when they're trying to figure out what they should do, I can tell them very clearly what they should do. And then it's going to be successful for them. And instead of them trying 2 or 3 things and failing, and then finding the right solution and just upsetting all their people, I can help them go from A to Z very quickly. And so that's been a lot of what I've been working on lately.
All right. And my last question would be getting 2 advices, one for all the C-levels and management level, that they are listening to the podcast, so what advice do you have for them? And then the second would be, what would you tell someone who just want to become an entrepreneur? They just want to start a business.
The advice is the same for both groups. And that is, you need to be reading. If you're not doing at least one, book that is business, self-help, growth, something where you're going to learn about how to improve yourself or your business. If you're not doing at least one book a month, you are radically behind everyone else who's an entrepreneur and CEO. The best of the best are reading 3 and 4 books a month. But I think a really good goal is if you can just get one book in a month, make that commitment. Join a book club. I have a book club if you want to join it. You get one in a month, listen to an Audible, read it, whatever your best way to digest it is. You learn so much. And if you can, be in a group of people, right? Be in a book club, read a book with your team, your employees or whatever, or your friends, or, but, and talk about it. Talk about what it means to you, and find something. In every book I read, I find something I can do better. I find some solution to a problem I didn't know existed. And I'm able to I really feel like I have evolved as a leader, right? I really started doing this back in 2008. And so here for 12, 13 years, I've been doing at least 12 books a year. That's a lot of books, right? There's a lot of knowledge in there that I would have otherwise never learned. So if you want to be a great boss, if you want to be a great entrepreneur, if you want to be relevant in your life and your business, you got to be reading / listening. I don't think just doing podcasts or just doing YouTube videos I don't think it cuts it. I think it's important to get one book in a month because it goes really, really deep into a particular topic. Podcasts are fantastic. It gets you exposed to new ideas and new people. But if you want to learn deeply, you got to go into that topic, I think, through a book. And it has been for me, a really big key to my success, to be always learning something new, always trying to challenge my beliefs, challenge what I think I know, and be better for it.
Great. So we're gonna have all the links, to your book club, everything in the descriptions. So if anyone watching on YouTube, you can see it on the description, or Apple or Spotify. So all those links are there. What would you say would be the easiest way people or any listener wants to contact you for remote work or get advice on the culture?
LinkedIn is always easy if they want to go there. They can also go to chrisdyer.com. You can contact me through there, and all my links to all my different social platforms are there. I'm pretty much everywhere, a little bit like COVID was a few months ago. So it's pretty easy to find me if you just do a little searching.
All right. Well, that was a really great talk. I really enjoyed, always enjoy talking to you. And thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.